We're live, so you're going to talk bad about people, you know.
Just on you, that's all.
All right. Understood.
It's soft lately. It's soft lately. I feel like you're due.
Well, it's important who might want to do you do the announcements?
Mr. Hoskins. Oh my God. Yeah, what's up?
I went to one night at
They don't. But he's taking. I had. He said they didn't know to be able to go through. And Renee is.
60.
Renee has a new baby.
Which one?
Holly had a little girl on Monday.
I did not know that.
Renee left right when she left church Sunday. She left and she spent the night somewhere so she could cut up the drive. So she got Holly went to the doctor, they put her in the hospital. Her blood pressure was sky high. And but Holly's got 3 boys and a girl.
Boys. What's that?
She's
I've been there. I remember my own name. It's a jacket. It's like 111 degrees in here.
Probably because y'all, it's usually 50 degrees in here. We're not.
Have you seen your wife traveling out of town, taking like crazy acting the full pictures for the whole world to see? It's just shameful. It's very introverted.
Very, it's an introverted thing to do.
I love your hair. Is that new? Rich, how many days is she? Her hair 50 years? Yeah, I colored that. You did that Sunday, did you? Golly, my awareness,
Your
teenage
eyes
awareness.
go to the place.
But I did notice, just having a month late.
You didn't even have my no one else.
When, Sunday? What was I talking? Shocking. Yours might have been intentional. I probably avoided him first. Like your nice, dull, subtle colors tonight. Very earth tone. We're gonna sing. Holly, we gonna sing? Happy 29th birthday to you.
It's Holly's birthday.
It was yesterday. But it's like you're robbing everyone else of the joy. Fine. Telephone. Holly. Telephone. Telegram. Tell the Dan. That's it. I'm just gonna go grab my other mother. If I knew where I used to stop all of you with my Bible, get out of here.
You say what?
You're getting somewhat to be consistent. You know what I mean? Let's see more. Let's see. Do sixth grade classes are green? Well, and both days, sixth class. They're two seventh grade classes.
What's the other difference?
Nobody wants to see this Yeah, if we could get Janet to sit down, the rest of us probably have a Bible class or something. It's delicious. It tastes delicious. Not that I would ever call anybody out or anything. Exactly. Y'all doing all right tonight? Fair to partly cloudy? Yeah. Any good news? Before we have some of the bad news? District championship? For you? Osceola baseball? Let's go. Playing first base still?
Yeah, playing Oklahoma,
Underachieving first base?
of course.
Your favorite team?
Oklahoma.
Tay didn't have a game tomorrow. I'd bring if y'all, I'll just leave my comments. We're staying positive. I'm not going to talk bad about Ocall here tonight. Y'all got a good chance? Girls won a game. Miss Lori and Carol went and watched the high school girls win a softball game. Extra inning, 14-13 doozy, from what I understand. So ain't nothing wrong with that.
Play tomorrow.
Yep. For who do they play tomorrow? Brantford. And y'all got Ocall. Tay-Tay's got a game tomorrow. Any other good news? That's it. Any bad news? Huh?
We're just catching a bunch of hogs.
That's great news. What you talking about? At your house?
Yeah.
Overboard. You got a hog problem? Oh man, the jokes just present themselves, and I just have to swallow it to try to behave. You know how hard that is. Just not great news. I don't know how many of y'all been following the young man Noah that this community's probably been praying for. Whatever. He passed. I think funeral arrangements are part of Thursday and part of Friday, so just kind of be mindful of that family.
Jim, Bean died.
Bean or Bean?
Bean.
Okay.
B-A-N.
Okay.
He was circuit judge here for a long time.
Okay.
Passed away yesterday morning about 2 a.m.
Okay. Be mindful of the Bean family. Renee Hurd has a new grandbaby, new granddaughter, first granddaughter. Spoiled. You know, it's funny just watching you guys smile about the announcement of other people's grandbabies. It's like y'all get is that like a club? So when you hear other people talking about their grandkids, it's just everybody just kind of shares that pride. It's just kind of funny to watch that reaction on YouTube. It's just funny. like like Miss Martha, everybody. When you announcement of a new grandbaby, you just see all you grandparents just kind of get extra glow about you. It's kind of neat to see. All right. Anything else you want to make mention of before we get rolling this evening?
Dan,
Yep.
very well, Star Trek procedures tomorrow.
My wife's not in here. She knows a whole lot better than I do. I can't remember. Honestly, I cannot remember. I think so, but don't quote me on that. But Alicia will know when we get back in there for the second part, and I'll make sure. She's been texting with her the last couple of days, or with her daughter. I don't remember my own name, Mr. Oscar, half the time. So, and who you gave me another announcement? Tommy Dorsey. I don't know if everybody knows him. He's a brother in Christ, worships over at Spring Warrior from the Mayo area. Been battling cancer for a while. And what did you say about that?
He doesn't have long, and he's going to be on the bad kind of treatments, but they don't know if he's going to be able to go through all of them.
Not doing well. They're having to really ramp up the kind of treatment that he's getting, the really bad kind, and they're not sure if he can even endure all of them. So it's not a great looking situation. So I know that the family would appreciate your prayers for sure. Tyler Sauter, can I pick on you? You want to kick us off with a word of prayer before we get rolling?
Lord, we thank you for this day and everything that you've given us. I pray that tonight we can obtain as much information from Dan as possible, Lord, and apply it to our lives. Please be with everyone that is sick or just has any kind of ailment about them, Lord. I pray that all of the surgeries and everything go well. And please be with us throughout this week. Please help us shine our light so that people can see that we are Christians. Just
All right, so tonight's class, hopefully y'all, is anybody not getting the text messages? Let me just throw that out there. Anybody not getting those? Anybody getting more than they want? Just trying to keep y'all updated. That's how that works. I wanted to talk about managing mountaintops tonight, just kind of as a group. I sent you two metaphors or two kind of illustrations that we'll whittle on a little bit. I hopefully didn't just absolutely read those and go, I have no idea what in the world Cheney's even talking about. And that's okay. That was your reaction. We'll try to steer you the right direction tonight. But we're going to talk about managing mountaintops. There's several passages we're going to look at. Just if you want to start turning your Bible as we kind of talk about it. But if you want to turn to 1 Corinthians 15, verse 58, we'll kind of kick off there. But we're going to kind of be all over as far as passages go this evening. 1 Corinthians 15, verse 58. So when we're talking about managing mountaintops, what do you think we're going to talk about?
Managing mountains that we're going to have to climb.
All right. And what's the opposite of a mountaintop, Miss Margie?
Valley.
A valley. Does that reflect y'all's life at all? You ever have a plan? Your plan kind of looks like a steady, that's the plan is here to there. What's reality usually look like? How crazy So why do we even need to talk about, is that even a biblical, when we're talking about managing mountaintops, why even talk about that? I'm just so you know, I'm thinking congregationally, I'm thinking personally, individually, I'm thinking along the lines of overcoming temptations, I'm thinking along the lines of good growth. Does growth always happen on a nice steady upstream, or is there setbacks in your own personal spiritual development as you try to get? So that's where I'm going kind of with it. Why is that even important to talk about managing the mountaintop? What do you think?
It's usually your challenge. That's a challenge to climb to the top of the mountain.
Okay.
It taxes you mentally and could be physically as well and spiritually.
And you had to crawl out of the valley, probably, which is kind of one of the setbacks, to get there to that mountaintop. So you've gone through the struggle, you've overcame, you've gotten to the mountaintop. But now, what might be an issue when, as I've conquered and struggled and fought, and now I get the glory? What might be a possible?
It's hard to maintain that position if you relax and forget what got you there.
Okay. Did everybody catch that? It's just a temptation of, I've kind of like David, like resting, and when the kings were supposed to be out fighting, like I've done my fighting, I've built my kingdom, and it's really easy to just kind of go, and then that's where it can trip up. Bill, did you have your hand raised?
I was going to say something similar to what Bill was saying. you accomplish something, look what I've done.
Okay.
It can become an ego thing. You give yourself the glory rather than God.
All right. Any biblical examples of that? Think about Nebuchadnezzar. Look at the kingdom I have built. You know what I mean? It happens again in the New Testament. Look at the kingdom I have built. You got to be careful. Brandon, I see it. You're okay. So that's kind of all of those kind of things, and really kind of the idea for the class came like I was on a pretty good high Sunday, and I just have this great friend that just loves to just when I'm on the mountaintop, just pull me right back to just like, hey, just in all seriousness, just like be careful. Don't allow yourself to get emotionally attached to the mountaintop and then get tripped up, and then it becomes a bigger fall than it needed to be because you just kind of weren't prepared. Does that mean we always have to be pessimistic? But we want to be realistic, right? And so one of the biblical concepts, which I'm going to get to a passage here, is there is a lot Scripture has to say about steadfastness. Now, different translations are going to probably use a slightly different word, and we'll even kind of go through that together. But when you hear the biblical word of being steadfast, what comes to your mind with that? Steadfast, word association. What other words come to mind? Or what pictures come to mind?
Standing your ground in a stronghold.
Okay, and I kind of even was thinking that with like Ephesians 6. We'd already talked about that, and the armor of God, and take your stand. And so that would be part of it. It's not a biblical word, but another one that kind of came to mind that related to that is the word balanced. Does that make sense? And so let's just look. Let's look at 1558, and then we'll kind of look at some other places together too. But let's see what y'all have. This is the New American Standard. It says, therefore, my beloved brethren, be steadfast. You got any other words than that? Everybody's got steadfast?
Stand firm.
Stand firm. All right. Immovable. Always abounding in the work of the Lord, knowing that your toil is not in vain in the Lord. Kind of interesting. A couple words even mirror some of the comments here tonight. Steadfast is that balance, that steadiness, that readiness, that always on our guard. Always abounding. Was there a comment or something about what's a temptation when you get to a mountaintop? To rest, to relax, to just lose a little bit of your edge, a little bit of your awareness, or just kind of relish in your success for a while. Well, notice this text says to do what? Always about. There's always a step forward to take. I think spiritually, I think individually, I think in your marriage, I think in my parenting skills, and everything in life, there's always room for improvement. There's always a little step that can be taken forward. I mean, so let's apply some of this, what we're talking about. They can bring it a little bit more to home. And I don't need specific, but I just think about your marriage. Think about raising your kids. Did you ever maybe at times take things for granted and then get your world rocked at times? Oh, man, we're coasting along. It's as easy and as good. Man, this parenting thing, this is easy. And then you get landmine, you know? Or, you know, hey, we're good. You know, nothing wrong in our marriage. You know, like we're not arguing, you know, everything. We're good. We're not, you know, we're kind of coasting along, and then boom, big argument, or a little disagreement, whatever. It's just, that's life. That's life. And so this awareness of being steadfast, this awareness of being balanced, this awareness that there's always room for improvement is kind of, I think that's just a very sound biblical concept for us to kind of explore a little bit. Is there another biblical word or concept that would come to mind that would relate to this? Either a word or passage or phrase that would come to your mind with any of this? There's one other one that came to mind, another word. We're going to look at more steadfast passages, but while we're here, I'm just going to just throw it all out there. We'll just shotgun it and then we'll whittle it down. What about the exhortation about being sober-minded? How would that relate to balance or steadiness or steadfast or managing mountaintops? And with some of the other things that have been said, why would being sober-minded be an important biblical principle that would kind of apply to this? What does it mean to be sober-minded? Does it just mean don't get drunk? Why are you laughing so hard with that, man? What's in your refrigerator? Mr. West?
Keeping your focus.
Okay.
David's a good example. He had great focus. And he looked away.
Okay. It was when kings are supposed to be out fighting and he took his ease, that one of his biggest blunders occurred to him. It's when he let his guard down, when he wasn't pressing forward. And he wasn't maybe as aware as focused. Bill?
Maybe a concept, you think about a group, like an honest appraisal.
Okay.
Where are you really? You know, is everything as great as you think it is? And then, you know, the way I tend to think of things is when things are going really well, it's time to look for the other shoe to fall.
Sure.
And it's not a pessimistic attitude, but, you know, the church was growing in Acts chapter 7. And that's when Satan went after him.
That's when Stephen gets stoned. That's when in chapter 8, the persecution rises so much they get scattered, if you're not tracking kind of where he's at in Acts 7 and 8. And it's not many chapters before that thousands are converted on the day of Pentecost. Thousands are mentioned kind of in 4 and 5. And then not long after all these thousands, I don't know if y'all are just kind of Bible trivia, but like Acts 4, Acts 5, Acts 6, there's some pretty significant events start rising. Thrown in prison, beaten, and then but thankful and rejoicing considered worthy. But there's multiple times as the success is there, then Satan ups his ante, and he just doesn't like, you know, he doesn't like that to thrive. Stephen being stoned, church gets scattered, can be used for good, but for sure. So you got sober-minded, you got steadfastness, you've got balance. All of this in the concept is just being aware of keeping your focus, being prepared. The sober-minded passage that maybe comes to your mind, why does it reference why we need to be sober-minded? I'm thinking Peter. What does Peter say about it? Be sober-minded, why? Because your adversary, the devil, what does he walk around like? A roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. Why do you need to be focused or sober-minded or steadfast or balanced? Because he's looking. He's looking to tribute. Related to our armor of God and why we need a shield of faith. Why do you need the armor on? What's he going to try to do? He's going to try to hurt you. He's going to find that chink. That's it.
That's where he was torn in.
You know, what I was thinking along the lines of where you were going with why we need to always kind of just have a ready mind. I want to put it in sports terms. As long as you're winning ball games, personality, little disputes, you know, little things in practice, little things like that. As long as you're winning, what usually gets done with all those? Oh, you know, we kind of overlook. Even from the coaching standpoint, you know, you got this, maybe this kid ain't playing that, but as long as you're winning, oh, you know, we'll overlook flaws. You know, winning solves a lot of problems, a lot of flaws, a lot of little things, a little irritation, whatever. Start losing, and then what happens to those problems? Oh man, it's the big, and it's so clearly seen, and it's the end of, it's just, that's life. That's life. So one of the illustrations I gave you is something that maybe you're more prepared for, and how maybe now you see where I was going with it. What's the difference between a candle and a firecracker when it comes to producing light? What's the difference between a candle and a firecracker?
One's long lasting, the other one's short.
Okay, we got long lasting and short. Any other comparisons as far as producing light?
Firecracker's there and then it's gone.
Okay. Pardon the term, how flashy is the firecracker's light? It's impressive, right? Very impressive. Woo, right? How exciting is a candle? I mean, I don't know, maybe that's your thing. I like not scented ones, girls. Like I'm just talking a big old plain, non-smelling old white cheese ball candle, and not your Scentsy, whatever, I don't know, what is it, pumpkin spice smelling nonsense that we're talking old plain vanilla candle. How about that? No scent. All right, so calm.
Wax candle.
Just an old wax. You know how exciting is that? Next anniversary birthday. Just give her one of them old, I mean, you just saw her reaction to a candle. I mean, I just get her the cheapest one I could find, dollar store, and just see if you get the same. No? Maybe a firecracker instead. Boom! Oh, it's exciting. How long did the light last? Versus the old candle, what's it going to do? It's just going to do its thing. Biblical passage, Psalm 1. Well, let's just read it. We're there. Let's just read it. We're in a Bible study.
we're going to talk about the difference between a tree and chaff. Similar, right? Trees and chaff. Psalm 1, verses 1 through 6. I'm not going to say who wants to read. I've been called out on that. Who will read? I've been told, hey, who wants to read? And I'm like, nobody. Well, then if you ask who will read, then you might get a response. Bill, I saw your hand first, so you get it.
I will read.
I will read. He doesn't want to read, but he will read.
1 through 6.
Yes, sir.
Oh, the joys of those who do not follow the advice of the wicked, or stand around with sinners, or join in with mockers. But they delight in the law of the Lord, meditating on it day and night. They are like trees planted on the riverbank, bearing fruit each season. Their leaves never wither, and they prosper in all they do. But not the wicked. They are like worthless chaff, scattered by the wind. They will be condemned at the time of judgment. Sinners will have no place among the godly. For the Lord watches over the path of the godly, but the path of the wicked leads to destruction.
What's the difference between an oak tree and chaff?
Oak tree planted firm and stable.
It's all day long.
Blows with the wind, this way and that way.
Biblical concept, right? And one of the things that makes the difference is that verse 2, his delight, one, he's interested in the law of the Lord, he's interested in spiritual things, and is in his law, he meditates. If you're going to be sober-minded, if you're going to get a point where you're not tossed to and fro, if you're going to get to a place where you can be steady, where you can handle adversity, when you can handle temptation, how's that going to happen? Just magically, or what's it going to require? Thought and work. What else are you? That's right. That's right. It's effort. It's time. There's a guy that gets up occasionally on Sunday mornings and talks about spending 30 minutes in the Bible. Y'all remember a guy that does that every once in a while? It's time in the Word. Meditation. That's how you get to a point of steadiness, of having a faith that you can confidently hold on to like a shield. So if we're going to manage mountaintops, if we're going to be sober-minded, if we're going to be steadfast type people, if we're going to be balanced, if we're going to be discerning, we're not going to be tossed to and fro. If we're going to be an oak tree, I'm mixing every metaphor I can throw at y'all, hoping one of them grabs a hold of you to say, it's going to take effort. It's going to take meditating on the law, Word of God. It's going to take being focused. It's going to take being sober-minded. All of that's going to be part of it.
Don't miss his pun that goes along with what we just read. Deep-rooted conviction, tree, deep roots. Another word that comes to mind is predictable. To the outside, when we're that way, we're predictable. People know how we're going to react because of our faith, because of what we believe and what we practice. So, inside it may be a bloody mess, but
That's right.
On the outside, we look predictable because people know how we are.
I was thinking on those same lines, all those adjectives that you just used, somebody looking in from the outside, that person he used the word predictable. I was thinking about dependable. Mm-hmm. And those are all attributes that Christians ought to be showing or exude to the outside world. I mean, an employee that's dependable, it sounds simple, but that's a very valued employee, dependable.
Dependable, balanced, the guy that just unwavering is another kind. I want to do an exercise real quick. I just want you to picture in your mind someone that you've encountered that spiritually you'd say, man, that person just, no matter what was going on, was just steady. Can you think of somebody that's along that line? That just, whenever maybe everything else was chaos, they just, like I said, maybe it was a bloody mess inside, as Kevin said, but just, at least from the outside, just seemed like they could just handle it all, they just steady as they goes. It doesn't mean they didn't get upset at times or whatever, but just, do you have somebody in mind that you can picture that's kind of like that? Anybody want to share the name that comes to mind and why they were that way? Wes, I see you nodding your head. You mind sharing? Yeah.
The list goes on.
Man, how about Abraham and all the stuff and the rocky road and Moses, the rocky road and all the stuff, but that's what makes him what he is he's just, no matter, unwavering. Remember the Romans passage? Hoping against hope. It just had that steadiness. Just, it's a rock. Predictable is a beautiful thing in that scenario, isn't it? Everybody likes to, y'all remember me talking about the difference between myself and my brother-in-law, preaching styles and just personality styles. But when, you know, everybody loves the flashy and all that, and it's fun. But man, when it hits the fan, who are you looking for? You're looking for those steady, dependable, predictable, that you know, and kind of the thing that makes them dependable and predictable is that you know you can count on them. They're going to be that tree. It's there. The wind's going to blow, and it may rock and it may lean, but you know it's going to be there. And that's the kind of people that you look for, and that's the kind of people we ought to strive to be.
And you form those opinions of those people because you know they've had those experiences. And one of the things to realize when you're managing your mountaintop, to borrow your phrase, is change is going to come. Yeah, we've just gone through COVID. Most of us have had our shots. Things are going well. Lots of us are coming. And everything, you know, COVID could come back. Something else could affect an individual or the congregation. You know, it's not so much that it's going to happen as much as how are we going to deal with it when it happens.
The way that we know that God is faithful is He's proven it. When does He usually prove it? When we're having a struggle, like, how do you know that a wall can hold you up? You have to test it, right? Well, when is it that we're going to find those steady, stable, either within ourselves, individually, or as we relationship with other people, congregate? When is it you're going to find out if we're steady, if we're manageable, if we're balanced? When is that going to be found out? Not when everything's winning, but when. Not the mountaintop, but when. When it hits. And so I guess where I'm mixing the two thoughts are, I feel like I'm personally, and I'm in a good place on a mountain, I want to be aware and not be caught off guard if a valley comes or we get tripped up. But at the same time, while everything's going good, is the time to build the relationships, to build the trust, whatever. So we're prepared when the inevitable comes, and it will come, that either disagreement or illness or another tragedy, that's just life. And when we find that out is when those difficult times come. And so that's just kind of where we're going. It's just being prepared. Being prepared. That's a passage that's all over that. Let's go to James 3. James chapter 3, and I've got here 1 through 8 and then verse 12. James 3, 1 through 8 and then verse 12. Can I get two readers on this one? Kevin, if you'll do 1 through 5, and then Miss Yvonne, if you'll do 6 through 8 and then verse 12. So 1 through 5, then 6 through 8 and 12.
My brethren, let not many of you become teachers, knowing that we shall receive a stricter judgment. For we all stumble in many things.
Freeze. I'm a moron. It's James 1. I don't know why I said 3. I'm a moron. Let's do same thing, 1 through 5, then 6 through 8 and 12 of James 1. I have no idea why. Maybe that James 3 verse 1, maybe I just need to be reminded about, hey, let not many of us say, hey, that might have just been, subconscious speaking to me there, Kevin. All right, go ahead.
James, a bondservant of God and to the Lord Jesus Christ, to the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad, greetings. My brethren, count it all joy when you fall into various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience. But let patience have its perfect work, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives to all liberally and without reproach, and it will be given to him.
But when you ask, you must believe and not doubt, because the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea, blown and tossed by the wind. That person should not expect to receive anything from the Lord. Such a person is double-minded and unstable in all they do. Believers in humble circumstances ought to take pride in their high position. Verse 12. Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised to those who love him.
All right, just a couple of things that jump out. They're dispersed. It could be the same dispersion we're talking about in Acts 7 because of persecution. They're spread out. The message is, consider it joy when you encounter various trials. Why? What's the benefit of now the valley? What's the benefit of the trial? What's it do?
you improve what you've been standing for.
Before it does that, it has to test you. So sometimes trials come. Do I always grow as a result of every trial? I wish I did, but the reality is no. Sometimes I don't learn. Sometimes I just get my tail kicked and I have to learn the hard way, which I guess is still benefit, but you got to be tested first. You don't really know if your faith is strong. You don't know if that wall is strong until you test it. You don't know if you can lean on something until you test it. How do I know my connection with God? How do I know my connection with a brother or sister in Christ? How close are we? We throw out the family. How family are we? When are we really going to know that? When you test it. Not on the mountaintop, when everything's great. Not when you're winning games. It's when you lose one. Then you lose a second. Then we start testing, where are we? But that testing of your faith will produce what? Endurance. And endurance can make you complete. It can supply what was lacking. And so verse 12, blessed is the man who perseveres under the trial, for once he's been approved, he's been tested and proven, he'll receive the crown of life. Now, it's talking individually there, but I want to just connect that to let's just talk about relationships. I cannot stand confrontation. I hate it. I avoid it as much as I can. As far as it depends on me, I'm trying to keep the peace. I don't like it. But the few times where you go through that with someone, and even if you kind of get frustrated with one another at times in the middle of that, but you work through it, and then you come out on the other side and you find out, hey, maybe we weren't all that different after all. Or even if we still disagree at the end, but they fought fairly, they were rational, they were reasonable, and I cannot express to you, as horrific as some of those moments have been in my life as a preacher and just as a human being, that when you got through on the other side, the result of the bond formed and that having gone through that, I can't even articulate what that does for your connection with that person, to know that, man, now if something comes up again, we've both been tested. Our relationship, our friendship's been tested. And now we found out, you know what? We may disagree, but they're still going to be there. There's still going to be that rock. They're still going to be steadfast. They're still going to be bound. Even if I'm not rational in every moment of the disagreement, but I'm going to get there. Husbands and wives, y'all figure that out? I wish I was great every time. I wish I was reasonable every time, but y'all know that's not reality. But when you go through those rocky spots, disagreements, whatever, and you both kind of come to your senses and you work through it, does it not do something to strengthen the relationship that's there, that we can get through this? We can. Man, it doesn't matter what comes our way next, because we've proven over and over, at the end of the day, we have each other's back. I got asked by a guy literally this week. I'm trying to think what day that was. Tuesday of this week, yesterday. Can't even remember my name. It was yesterday. And the guy he asked me how long I've been married. I told him about 20 years. He said, man, what's your secret? And I said, for my wife and I, it's that there's no back door. We made the decision from day one. There's no opt-out clause. I said, we come from a kind of a faith that doesn't believe that divorce is okay. And so there's no back door. And if you know that there's no back door, if there's no plan B, then the only choice you have is what? We got to work it out. So I said, if I know the only choice I have is where I said, because if I know I can't get divorced, I don't want to be miserable. So it behooves me to make it work. Who wants to be miserable forever? Right? So it's I can't get divorced and I can't kill her. So it behooves me to work it out. Right? And I don't want her to kill her. I mean, it's just we had a kind of good laugh about that. But so what about as brethren? There's no back door. We're gonna no matter what comes, we're gonna work this out. Now, reality is, I think everybody goes into every marriage thinking that, and that so far as it depends on you, be at peace with all people, right? Sometimes people prove that they're not reasonable, they're not steadfast, they're not balanced, they're not sober-minded. You can't count on them, you can't depend on them. In fact, they prove in the middle of the trial that they're everything they're not supposed to be. So that's just kind of, I know we're kind of hitting a lot of different things, but I hope kind of somewhat the message is coming home. Look, if you would, we're not far from it. Go to 2 Peter 1. 2 Peter 1, I want to read 5 through 8. Just look at some of the things we're supposed to add to our faith. And there may be some translation differences here that I'd be interested to hear. 2 Peter 1, and I want to do, let's just do 5 through 8. 2 Peter 1, 5 through 8. Mark, do you have that one? All right, if you don't mind reading that.
2 Peter 1, 5 through 8.
Yes, sir.
But also for this very reason, giving all diligence, add to your faith virtue, knowledge, self-control, perseverance, godliness, brotherly kindness, and love. For these things are yours and abound. You will neither barren nor unfruitful in knowledge and knowledge.
And there's a lot packed in there, is there not? We could spend a lot of time on that. Apply all diligence to add to your faith. That sound like effort? You don't just, I hope my faith grows, or I hope it's effort. It's that meditating on it. You want to be the oak tree or you want to be trapped? Well, there's meditating. Applying all effort to add to your faith. And this is where the translation, you've got moral excellence, then you've got knowledge, then you've got self-control. Does self-control relate to anything we're talking about tonight as far as managing your mountaintops? Being steadfast, unwavering, sober-minded, self-control. You got to be able to, and then what word do y'all have that comes after self-control?
Perseverance.
Perseverance is a lot of translations. Anybody have anything different than perseverance?
Patient endurance.
Patient endurance, and then I think it's the New King James that has and self-control with steadfastness. That's why I got my word there. Steadfastness, what'd you say? Enduring patience? Patient enduring, or that perseverance. The ability to hang in there. Even whether you're on the mountaintop or in the valley, the ability to hang in there and to hold on. And if these are yours, verse 8, and what? I was patient once. That's good enough, right? I exercised self-control at least one time in my life. What does he say? If these are yours and either abounding, or some of your versions may say increasing, which there's even a little bit difference to that. Increasing just means I'm getting a little bit better over time. What does abounding come to mind? I need a whole lot of it. I don't need just a little bit of self-control. I need a whole lot of it. I don't need just a little bit of love. I need a whole lot of it. All right. So that's kind of that picture that we have there. All right. So let me ask you then the second kind of illustration we had, and we got several other passages we can go to, but I don't want to miss this. So we're thinking about steadfast, managing mountaintops, sober-minded, all this, and it's all going to relate here. What is the difference between a thermostat and a thermometer when it comes to temperature? What's the difference between a thermostat and a thermometer when it comes to temperature? All right, Ms. Margie?
Thermostat keeps it at a level temperature.
Okay.
And a thermometer just tells you what the temperature is at that time.
All right, so I think you're spot on. Let's dig a little deeper. Where do you think I'm going with that? Why would I not want to be then a thermometer? What would be bad about me spiritually, or just as it comes to trials or related? What's a thermometer do?
Tell me what temperature or what it is at that
It reacts to whatever the temperature is. It just reacts to whatever the environment around it. It acclimates to whatever the environment around it is. How is that different than what can I do with a thermostat? I've got control. You said set it. Does setting it sound a little bit like steadfastness or standing, as Brandon said earlier? You kind of get the picture? So do you want to be a thermometer, or do you want to be a thermostat when it comes to trials, when it comes to mountaintops, when it just overcoming temptation, all these things? Am I a thermometer? Am I reacting to everything else? Am I just going along and am I showing what everything else around me is showing? Or do I want to be a thermostat, which does what again? It keeps it steady, or I can change it. If it's too hot, what can a thermostat do? It can if it's not hot enough, what can a thermostat? So apply that then spiritually. Then what are some ways then that I can be a thermostat? You can apply it individually. You can apply it to your marriage. You can apply it to raising kids. You can apply it to being a Christian. You can apply it to a church family. You can apply it however you want. And what are some ways that I can be a thermostat versus a thermometer?
If you find out that your faith is fading and you're dropping in your desire to be faithful, if you read the Bible and hit people with like precious faith, you can build that thermometer back up.
That's right.
Thermostat can be turned back up.
Say probably when I'm feeling it wane is because I become a thermometer, and in order to change that, I've got to switch to the. And so I love that you're saying that I can tell whether the fire is leaving or not. Whether I admit it to myself, I think we all know because I don't know, maybe I'd like to say we've all gone through that. I mean, I'm just being honest. Where the fire is, feels like it's waning. I've had it. There are some things you can do to actively change that temperature. And it may be as simple as getting in the Bible. It may be getting around other like-minded people. And that doesn't mean it's going to happen immediately, but over time, it's going to rub off on you. Putting yourself in the right places with the right people, with the right kind of information can let you change what that temperature is.
Imagine or remember the last time you were in a church setting and something scandalous was revealed. You know, if passions are inflamed, people that have been through the other side of these things may be able to calm things down and tell them, yeah, you know, what happened is bad, but how we handle it determines what it's really like.
That's right.
And you know, that it's not the end of the world, that people are going to make mistakes.
Have you heard the phrase, life's not so much about what happens to you, but how you react to what happens to you? Does that make sense? It's not so much about what happens, because stuff happens to everybody. I don't care. There is no perfect family. There is no family that's going to go through the world unscathed. It's not about as much, and some things are worse than others. I'm not denying it, but it's not as much about what happens to you, but how I react to that. There is a passage in 2 Corinthians 1 talks about that we who have been comforted by the Lord turn around and comfort others with the same comfort we receive. And I could put that in the same, people who have been through the fire and come out on it can provide a lot of steadiness, a lot of wisdom, a lot of calming influence to those who are now in the flame themselves to say, hey, been there, hold on, here's kind of what I did, you know, and there is light at the end of the tunnel. Man, I'm mixing metaphors bad. Mixing them bad, but that's just how my brain works. Wes, did you have your hand raised earlier about this?
What I was going to say was continually making adjustments.
Yeah.
To whatever's going on around us. And that's life, like you said. But that's what you do with thermostat.
That's right. One of the big words that kind of came out of the conversation that I was encouraged to look at too, that will help me manage the mountaintops, and I think also in its own way help me manage even the valleys, is humility. That even when I'm on the mountaintop, be humble enough to realize nobody stays at the mountaintop forever. There's nobody. Even as I stay there a lot. I would say the majority of my life I am here. But nobody, spiritually, in your marriage, and your faith, I don't think anybody stays here consistently. Is that reality? It's just not. So I have the humility to recognize when I'm not there, I've got work to do. And so even when I'm in the valley, the humility to realize, hey, God is bigger than me. There is a way out of this. I've been on the mountaintop before. I can get there again. God can help me get there again. So there's even humility to maybe accept help and let God in, in some ways can help with that. Any other thoughts y'all got along that lines of?
You're going to have your highs. Everybody has highs. And, you have those moments where everything's just going really well. Well, if you realize that you're not there solely because of yourself, and, it may be God's providence work, it may be other people helping you out, whatever. If you realize this isn't all about you, and it didn't all happen because of you, your high may not be as great, but the potential for your valley, I believe, is minimized. Yeah, you've created a buffer there. Because you're looking around and you're anticipating, hey, this isn't going to last forever.
Can I quote Barney Fife? Nip it in the bud before it grows too big. And while I'm on the mountaintop and maybe I'm starting to come down because I'm aware and sober-minded looking around and I see trouble on the horizon, well, rather than just kind of ignoring it and then here it comes and it's on top of me, nip it in the bud early. Navigate around it. Find a different path early. So I guess my closing admonitions or encouragement is make the most of the mountaintop. Use it as a spiritual recharge that maybe you've needed when you are there and you're feeling good and life's going good and your kids are all behaving and everything's good. Make the most of it. Drink deeply from it. Use the recharge and get that recharge as much as you can. Maximize like trying to spread your mountaintop to others when you're there. Make the most of the mountaintop. That would be point one. But then point B is kind of where we've been shucking and jiving with class tonight is be anticipating the future. Make sure that I'm steady. One of the passages I didn't have written down, but just comes to my mind is there's a passage in I think it's Proverbs. It is Proverbs about Lord, don't give me so much that I forget about you, but also I don't want to be so poor that then I think about stealing somebody else. And kind of the way that I heard a preacher friend of mine put it one time, Lord, give me that nice like middle class status. I don't want to be so rich I forget about you. I don't want to be so poor I'm stealing. I just want to, So like, Lord, I don't necessarily have to be on the mountaintop, but Lord, please keep me out of the valleys. I want to just, somewhere around like mid-hill. Be all right, steady as she goes. All right, I've enjoyed our class. All right, so I'm going to put this on you too. I'll just go ahead and put it in your head. Can we hit Abraham one more time? Anybody not okay with us hitting Abraham? Are you getting bored with Abraham yet? I was digging and doing some stuff and I was so ready to move on. And I'm just like, can we? I'm just going to tell you, I feel like in my preaching life and in my personal life, I've not valued Abraham. Everybody knows the Abraham and Isaac story. We get that one, but I don't think I've given him enough credit of that father of the faithful and really just marinated on and meditate, like let it just sink in about. We want to talk about steady. You want to talk about just kind of unwavering and it's a great, and that's why he is called. I mean, he is kind of where I was going to go is trace some of the places he's talked about in the New Testament and maybe spend a little bit of time in some of the narratives of the Old Testament. I don't know if y'all are in a hurry to get on to the next guy, but I want to hit Abraham a little bit more. So there you go. If y'all want to read Acts 7, that's one of the places he comes up. He's recounted. If you want to read the Hebrews 11 account, that'd be a good one to refresh yourselves with. And that's kind of where we'll go Sunday morning. All right. Do we have everybody back in? When they get back in here, can I just throw it on you to grab a song and we'll kind of close with that? I'm not going to really do an invitation, Mr. Oscar. If you want to, as soon as she gets in there, if you just want to kind of come up and do whatever. Do you want to talk the way you're going to talk at the end or you want to do it before the song? It's your call. All right, so we'll do the song first. We'll all sing together, and then I'm going to turn things over to Brother Oscar. Y'all feel the building leaning to the right? It's like. Yep. Oscar said sing first, and then he'll get back to that.
Try number 312. I think that's appropriate for the discussion we've been having tonight in our class. So it's been a long time since I've sung this song and never read it, so that's all. Let's stand, I believe we'll all sing that. Time is filled with transition.
None of earth and moon can stand. Build your hopes on things eternal. Hold to God's unchanging hand. Hold to His hand, to God's unchanging hand. Hold to His hand, to God's unchanging hand. Build your hopes on things eternal. Hold to God's unchanging hand. Trust in Him who will not leave you. Whatsoever years may bring, if by earthly friends forsaken, still more closely to Him cling. Hold to His hand, to God's unchanging hand. Hold to His hand, to God's unchanging hand. Build your hopes on things eternal. Hold to God's unchanging hand. When your journey is completed, if to God you have been true, fair and bright the home in glory, your enraptured soul will view. Hold to His hand, to God's unchanging hand. Hold to His hand, to God's unchanging hand. Build your hopes on things eternal. Hold to God's unchanging hand.
I want to talk with you about Mary Wallace, the lady that's sitting back here. MRI tomorrow, surgery the next day.
Friday.
Fundraisers throughout the community, and we haven't done anything. I think we need to step forward and do something for that family. I don't know anything about the financial status, but they wouldn't be out doing state sales and this, that, and the other if they were financially secure. And as Christian folks, I think we have an obligation to help folks. What's the feeling of this church?
I agree.
Did it? Sir? You in or out?
It's a great idea.
Amen.
All right. How much?
Not to, like I said, get into all their stuff, but I know that the procedure that they have tomorrow, she's got to pay $600 out of pocket.
Would you be in or out?
Like I said, I'm not trying to tell everybody stuff, and if Shane's turning off, that's better, but